Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the VS Code live stream. It is Thursday, August the 3rd. It's August already. And that means, at least for us, we're going back to school real soon. What's up, LePayne? Hi, Edwin. What's going on? Edwin, you're officially first today. The good news is you're first. The bad news is there is no prize for that. Good to see everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Payne's excited for this video. Nice. It's going to be a great one. You should be excited for all the streams. This one's going to be exceptional, though. You're right. I'm glad you're here. What's going on, chat? What's happening? Where are we tuning in from today? I'm closing browser tabs while y'all answer that. What's up, T? How's it going? Good to see you. We are, just as a reminder, we are streaming to Twitch, YouTube, Mixer. I'm going to get fired for that. That's not a thing anymore, is it? India, what's up, Vital? Did I say that right, Vital? Hopefully I said that right. Canada, hey, what's up? All right. Hello from Belgium. What's up, Belgium? How are things in Belgium these days? I was in Belgium not so long ago. Well, I say that, but then the pandemic was like 3.5 years ago, and all of that time I kind of write off as being not part of my personal history. But I enjoyed it. I went to Bruges because I saw the movie In Bruges. If y'all haven't seen In Bruges, I highly recommend that you watch it. Very good. And then I wanted to go there, so I did. Can I turn the slow chat response? Producer, this is something we need to look into. I think we actually have to do it prior to the stream. But if you go into the YouTube settings, producer, and look at there is an option for latency on the chat, so that because there's like a 15-second delay. They're right about that. What's up, Brazil? How's it going? Yeah, Kabambe, nice place, Bruges. I went to, they have a torture museum. They have a torture museum in Bruges. I went there. Highly recommended. All right. Well, today we have a great guest on, but before we get to that, let's do, it's Throwback Thursday or Thursday Throwback. One of the two. I don't know which one it is. Can we run it?
Vertical rulers are really handy for making sure your lines of code are a readable length. If you search for rulers in your settings editor, you'll then need to open your settings file. To add a ruler, you can type the column number that you want the ruler to appear. So for example, the Python style guide says that code lines should be a max length of 79. And once I save the settings file, we can see that ruler pop up. You can also have multiple rulers, so I'm going to add another one at column 72 because that's what the Python style guide says the max length of comments should be. And you can even make each ruler a different color. You'll just change the syntax in the settings to this, and then I'll pick which color I want for each. Now, different languages have different style guides, so you can always configure rulers the same way you would any other language-specific setting. So if I move this setting into my Python settings, we can see the rulers only show in Python files.
There you go. That's your friendly reminder to follow us on TikTok and like and subscribe on YouTube. Look, if you're going to waste 3 hours of your life watching short form video, you might as well learn something, right? We're trying to help you. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. We turned off slow mode. Let's test it out. Who asked us to turn off slow mode? T, I'm gonna ask you a question, and then you respond as quickly as you can, okay? Tabs or spaces? Six, 7, 8. We're waiting on T. 9, 10, 11, 12 spaces. All right, so 12 seconds. Is that really that was it? All right, that latency still seems kind of bad. I wonder if we have to turn it on or off prior to the stream. The correct answer was spaces. I'm sorry, T, you're wrong. Religious baits. Okay, look, we wasted enough time. Sorry, I'm trying to hide that. we wasn't enough time. We got a great stream for you today. We have New Relic is with us. New Relic, if you're a developer, you may know who they are. You probably do. If you don't, they're a very popular developer product. Don't worry about it if you don't know. We'll go through that. And so we have Pez here with us from New Relic. We're gonna do all things New Relics. Let's bring Pez on. Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going, Burke? How are you? And by the way, I'm gonna have to disagree with you.
Oh no.
Tabs FTW. Come on.
Tabs it is. You heard it directly from New Relic. Is that New Relic's official position?
No, that's just my personal.
Do you speak officially on behalf of?
Here's my argument, and I'm sure you'll disagree, but the biggest argument for spaces is that if you have like a function definition that wraps, right, you want to get your arguments lined up right under the parentheses or something like that. So the second line, you want to have exactly the right column. I get it. If that's your jam and you need to do that, fine. But what I think happens more often is that some developers have massive monitors and they want like 8 space indents for every indentation, and others like prefer 2. And if you use tabs, you can have both. Like one developer on your team can have it spaced out super wide because they can make their tabs 8 spaces, and other developers can keep it at 2. So
what about tabs mapped to spaces?
How does that work?
Well, if you set your tab size,
yeah,
you just set your tab size to 2 instead of 4,
right,
or 8 instead of 2,
right.
But I guess then you're saying it's the difference between having a customized variable width and just one that's applied everywhere, right? Okay.
And then the worst is if you mix tabs and spaces, and like you assume that tab width is 4, so you do like 3 tabs and then 3 spaces. So you might think that that's 12, 13, 14, 15 characters, but then somebody else has their tab width set to 8, and then you're all kinds of messed up. So
what about home and end? T's asking. What do you mean home and end? Like going to the front of the line and going to the end of the line? A home and end would be going. I'm on a Mac, so we do have those keys. I don't ever use them.
I think so. I never use them, but
so you same? Okay. So I think it's home would be going to the top of the file and end is goes to the bottom. Is that right? I don't even know. I never touched those keys, T. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
All right. To get to the end of a code line, again, I just do command right arrow key to do that.
Command E because I'm an Emacs like holdover.
Old habits die hard.
Control E goes to the end of the line rather.
All right. All right, Pez, what are we doing today? What do we got for the chat?
Well, I'll give you a little bit of backstory. So I'm excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me to come present. I started a company 5 years ago called CodeStream, and CodeStream was acquired by New Relic 2 years ago because of a shared thesis that if we can give engineers, specifically application developers, better data, then we'll be able to write better code. And one of the blind spots that I've seen when I talk to engineers is that they have all kinds of awesome tools to help them debug things locally. And we've got linters, we've got debuggers, got all kinds of awesome tooling on my local machine. But when it comes to finding out like how is this code working in production, that often requires a completely different set of tools. And either I don't have access to them, or I'm not trained on them, or I'm not sure how to use them. And so what we've done is we've made it super easy, because of how awesome VS Code makes this to do, is we've taken the production telemetry that you're collecting already from your production systems, and we're bringing the most relevant, most important parts of that production telemetry into the editor to live right alongside the code that builds your system.
Very nice. So maybe tell us a little bit about CodeStream and then New Relic and like what those things are and what they do for the chat. For those who don't know, And fun fact about CodeStream, didn't y'all used to employ one Eric Amodio? Wasn't that?
Yeah.
Was that true? Yeah. Who's the author of Gitlins and very famous in VS Code world. But tell us about CodeStream and New Relic. What are those products?
Yeah. Eric's a great friend. Awesome. He worked with us for a couple of years and great guy. Still one of my close friends.
He worked with us for a couple of years too.
Yeah, I know. And now he's at Git Kraken, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so New Relic is a 14-year-old company, and it was founded in order to make it easy to measure how your systems are doing in production. So it started out as monitoring, and now we're in a category called observability. So we offer software through what are called agents and also SDKs, where you can sort of inject a piece of code into your application, regardless of what language. We've got language agents for all the popular languages. And then when you deploy your application into production, we collect data about how that application is performing. Things like what's the average response time? What's the throughput? Systems that your application is dependent on, and how are they doing? So we collect all of this data about your running system while it's in production, and we give you dashboards to help you understand where the bottlenecks are, how customer performance is, and gosh, hopefully not, but if there ever is a problem, we give you a lot of information to help you troubleshoot and get your system back up and running. There are many competitors in this space, so if you've ever heard of companies like Datadog or Dynatrace, those are some of the competitors that we have, but we think New Relic's got a pretty compelling and feature-rich solution because we've been doing it for a long time. So that's one side of the house. You asked about New Relic. Any questions or comments about that part of it? Anything that isn't quite clear, Burke?
We'll give chat a question. The thing that I always remember about New Relic was it's like Twilio. It had a great ad campaign that sticks in my mind. So Twilio had that billboard that just said, "Ask your developer" in San Francisco. And then New Relic had the two hands, right? And it said "Nerd Life," right, in tattoos across the knuckles, which was, I mean, you just saw it everywhere. And the brilliant marketing. Where is that person who thought up that campaign?
Yeah, so that's our chairman, Lou Cerny. And fun fact about New Relic, the name of the company itself is an anagram of our founder's name. So his name is Lou Cerny. And if you scramble those letters around, you get New Relic. And,
really?
Yeah. And he has a strong nerd culture. And so for a long time, we were data for nerds. And so that's really, what we do. Our customers and our advocates are all engineers. And I think perhaps those engineers that skew a little bit more to the technical side. And because we have a lot of low-level data and it's an interesting system. Actually, one of the fun facts about New Relic is we collect a lot of data. In fact, this year, we'll collect about 3 exabytes of data from our customers as they send.
Is that what's after terabyte? Is exabyte?
Yeah. Petabyte and then
exabyte. Wow.
Yeah, it's a tremendous amount of data. And that's because we keep really big companies up and running. Some of our customers are large banks that or big fast food restaurants, and they send us all their important telemetry data to make sure that their systems stay up and running.
So Surly Dev wants to know how many floppy disks is that? Do the math. Do the math, Surly. You do it for us. It's so a floppy disk is 1 point what kilobytes?
Aren't they megabytes?
1 point something kilobytes, I think.
So to answer, 1.44 megabytes. That's what I remember.
1.44 megabytes. Okay, so then gigabytes 1,024 megabytes. Terabyte is 1,024 gigabytes. Petabyte is 1,024 terabytes.
Yeah, so I think it's a billion. Is that right?
It would be a
giga, tera, peta.
Billion.
No, it's 1,000 billion. So it's
1,000 billion floppy disks.
Yeah.
We've come a long way.
Yeah. So T asked, where does this data go? So we have a very large database that we will run across our cloud partners that we call NRDB, and that stands for New Relic Database. And it's a proprietary time series database. Well, we have lots of different data in it, so time series data and other data. And it's meant to be infinitely scalable, which you need to be at that data ingest size. And also, the queries have to be very performant.
Yeah.
In order to show you the dashboard of your system status, it needs to happen pretty quickly.
So let's do you want to bring up VS Code and we'll take a look at it?
Let's do it.
Yeah, the data thing's pretty interesting. I used to work at the last time I saw a huge amount of data, I worked at a restaurant company building their back of house systems, and they had transactional data going back, a couple decades, and it was a lot. And you had to be real careful when you touch that system, because if you ran the wrong query, man, that thing would just cook. It would just sit there and melt.
It would go for quite some time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we described what New Relic does. So what does CodeStream do? Well, CodeStream, as I mentioned, it was acquired by New Relic a couple years ago, and we build an editor extension. So here we are in VS Code, and you can install CodeStream super easy, just by the same way you install any extension. Just go to the extension marketplace, and you'll be able to find New Relic CodeStream and just install it from there. We do have a free tier, so you can get started with New Relic and with CodeStream for free. And it's actually pretty generous in that you get one free user license, so you get to use it yourself for as long as you want for free. And you get to ingest up to 100 gigabytes per month without having to pay. So that, you can install it in your system, deploy an agent that starts sending telemetry to our systems, which you can then visualize in VS Code. And you can do that basically indefinitely for a certain size system. And then, if you love New Relic and CodeStream and you grow with your usage, then you'll decide whether it's worth paying for.
So that extension, is that both New Relic and CodeStream, or just CodeStream we're talking about at the moment? It's both.
Well, it's we call it New Relic CodeStream. So, it's branded sort of both. So CodeStream is the in IDE extension that allows you to access the New Relic collected data.
Okay. All
you
right.
can also go to newrelic.com and have a web-based interface, but for developers, what's better than being in your IDE?
Yeah, being inside the editor. That's the idea, is that less context switching means more productivity because you're not bouncing around.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll sort of walk you through some of the use cases, and you'll understand that, especially for larger companies, we're collecting so much data from production that as an individual application developer, it can get really overwhelming. Yeah. So one of the things that we do is we give you the right data for your system based on what code you're looking at. So we automatically filter it down for you, which makes it a lot easier to understand what's happening.
That's very cool. Yeah, let's take a look.
Yeah, great. So here I am in VS Code, and I should note that CodeStream also supports other editors, although my favorite, of course, is VS Code. So if some people on your team are using a different editor, it also works there, chances are. So the first thing that you'll notice is this observability section within the CodeStream side panel here. And what this lists is all the places that my application is running. So what do we mean by my application? Well, I've got this file open in my editor, which is coming from a particular repo. And that repo actually builds two different services that get deployed into other environments. And those two services are called Workloads API Java, which you can see here, and Workloads Evaluator. So this repo builds two things, two programs. Those end up in different environments, which you can see here. There's EU production.all, EU production, production all, production, staging. So you can set up wherever you're going to be deploying code, you associate those environments and those applications with the repo. And you only have to do that once. And what's cool about that is now anybody on my team who opens up a file from this repo, they'll get to see where the code is running in all the environments that it's been set up.
So is that with a file that gets checked into source control? Is that how you have a config file?
It's actually stored in the New Relic backend. So it's something that you can just set up via a simple point and click. So you can see here, add another service. So for example, I wanted to start collecting telemetry from running this in an Endeavor environment or a load testing environment or wherever else it's running. It's super easy to just set it up here and attach this repo to another running application that's built from the repo.
Gotcha. Okay.
So now that I've got this set up, well, what can we do with it? Well, let's look in staging, and I'm going to apologize in advance because we're going to be loading data from staging, and we all know how reliable staging environments are. So live demo plus staging, we'll hope for the best here. But once I open up this node and I can see some of the data behind what's happening with this application, you'll get an idea of the type of data that we're collecting. So these three things are called golden metrics, which is the response time. So how quickly this service is responding to requests, what the throughput is, how many requests it's getting per minute, and what the error rate, thankfully right now it's 0%, that's great. So I can see at a glance how this application is performing in this environment. So that's pretty cool because, like, as an individual application engineer, I'm always curious, or I should be curious, how my application is running in production. But I think maybe more importantly is that as an engineering manager, I sort of have to just set this up once. As soon as I associate this repo with the running service, then everybody on my team has sort of like a default on, set it and forget it. Now, everybody on the team has super easy access to seeing the important metrics. And what's great about this is that I can set up thresholds. So if I ever see the response time get above a certain amount, so if the latency gets too high, in other words, my application gets slow, I can set up alerts. And so those alerts will fire and these numbers will sort of turn red and I'll get a notification, hey, your application is slow in production. And exactly those engineers who work on the code and have the code open in their IDE will get notified. So it's sort of an easy way to get the right message to the right person at the right time.
Does it also like text people?
No, well, we do have lots of different types of alerts you can set up. So you can decide how you want them to be delivered. With CodeStream, what we do is the in IDE experience where you'll get a toast notification and you'll also get sort of a UI treatment here that shows you what's happening. But we also allow you to configure it to send a Slack message or trigger another service like send an email or a push notification if you've got our mobile app. So there's a number of different ways you can set it up, whatever works best for you.
Yeah.
So that's the golden metrics, which are really sort of the core vitals of the application. But we also allow you to set something called service level objectives. So for those who might not be familiar with service level management, it allows you to set certain goals for your application. And for example, I want to keep my response time under 2 seconds, or I want to have a certain amount of success in users, or I want to keep my error rate below a certain amount. So you get to set exactly what thresholds you want over a certain period of time. And that allows you to measure, let's say, for example, I want to only have 4 errors per week. So you set up your service level objective that fewer than 4 errors per week. And then what this will report on is how you're doing over that time period and whether you're on pace, in which case this will be green, or whether you're behind pace. If you've had 2 errors and you're only 1 day into the week, well, you've got a problem and you've got to work on your reliability in order to meet your objective. And so we let you know in advance. So service levels are something that are pretty widely adopted within the industry. Google popularized them years ago. And so a number of operations teams are now using them to manage how they keep their systems up and performing well. And so what this is doing is now it's bringing something from a typical sort of DevOps or maybe even ops world into the hands of the application developer. So you can see firsthand, like, how am I doing? How's my app doing? The one that I'm responsible for, how is it doing related to my service level objectives?
So what does that mean? Response time less than 2 seconds, meaning 99.48% of requests are being filled in less than 2 seconds.
That's exactly right. And that's over the last 7 days. And so you can configure these to be whatever you want. Like, you set up, you get to decide. We'll recommend some to you based on best practices, like what customers are typically doing. And it's things like response time and error rate that you want to keep track of. But you can set up a service level objective for really anything you want, any metric that's being tracked. So if you have like a key transaction, let's say you're running an e-commerce site and you want to have a certain number of transactions every day, it can be a business objective. So you want to have at least 10 transactions per day. Over the course of 7 days, that'll be 70 transactions, and you want to be that number or above. And so you can set up an objective and where you want to be relative to that objective over a time period. And then what a service level will do is show you how you're tracking against that goal.
Okay, so like when you say transactions, like 10 purchases from an e-commerce site?
That's right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can actually see that. But that would be more of like an analyst data point, right? So I'm assuming
Right.
Analysts also use New Relic to look at business.
Yeah. It's primarily technical tool. I was just trying to illustrate that you can really set up anything you want. Like, you can do it for disk space utilization, response rate, throughput, any metric that you can measure in your production system, you can set up a service level objective for it.
And the idea behind this, correct me if I'm wrong here, but as I understand it, it's that you put one line of code in your application and you don't change anything else, and it just sort of magically works.
Yeah.
For you.
It is kind of like magic. Yeah. In order to install one of our language agents, it really is just like one line of code. And then we start automatically collect all kinds of information. Like the response time, throughput, and error rate are just the tip of the iceberg. And I'll get into some of the juicier details in a second. But it is really cool how much information you get about your application just right out of the box. And then even more if you want.
I remember because I used to work at a company called Telemetry. Chat, do you know Telemetry? They're still around, and they may still have it, but it was an analytics. It was a German company had made it, and then we acquired it, and that's how it worked, right? You put one script tag in your JavaScript, and then magically your application would just light up and start sending all kinds of stuff in, which I thought was really cool because prior to that, it was like handle it in every catch and send a message to the analytics service, which was tedious, to say the least.
And what might spring to mind is that, oh wow, I'm adding this one line of code and it's collecting all this data, but isn't that going to impact performance? Like, what will that do to my application production? But we've spent 14 years fine-tuning how we collect this data, and there's a lot of really heavy engineering in order to make sure that it's got a very minimal impact on your production systems. So it's become, especially for medium to large size businesses, become a no-brainer that you need an observability solution. So what I may recommend for any of the junior devs that are on the call or watching, or maybe you're working at a small startup, is the sooner you can incorporate observability, especially since it's free, the better information you'll have. And there's no use to just not try it and see what information you can get from it.
Yeah, you're not gonna fly without telemetry on any application that's business critical. Although I remember the days of doing that, and the way that we did it was we just logged everything. And we had this database full. Do you remember doing this? Yeah. Database full of logs, and then you would build tools on top of the logs so that you could see. I think like companies like PagerDuty used to plug into this, so you could like call PagerDuty from your internal, but you had to build all this, and now it's
exactly. Now it comes out of the box. So SLO, or service level objectives, that's the next thing. And then errors, I'm going to come back to this in a second because this is going to be the grand finale of the demo. Is okay. next we have vulnerabilities. So we automatically detect, we scan your application and show you if you have any known vulnerabilities. And what's cool about this, again, like this has typically been the domain of the security team to do, you know, all kinds of vulnerability analysis. But here we're scanning it for you, and we're feeding right to the correct developer the known vulnerabilities into the repo where they exist and show you instructions for how to mitigate it. So it's really great to just have this always on visibility where individual application developers will know if they're running, you know, if they're including any package that are out of date, they just have to update to the latest version. That's usually what needs to happen. Or if they have any other vulnerabilities. And this also plugs in to any VM scanner that you may be using already, like Sneak or anything like that. And so you have one view of where all your issues might be. And
that's really nice. I used to feel real sheepish when security would come to me and be like, hey, did you know that your application is exposing a key? And I would feel really embarrassed because I had no idea, right? There's no way to know until they would go out and do whatever they do. Although, Pez, I thought the primary role of security is to tell you that you're not allowed to use the open source package you just requested. Isn't that?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's how it felt to me, right? Yeah. Here, I'm going to go submit a request the formal way so you can tell me no. Let's get it over with. All right. I'm kidding. Listen, security people, it's a security joke. Y'all are awesome. We need you. Okay. Where are we going next?
First, though, I missed an important point, which is that CodeStream itself is open source. So, you know, which is not uncommon, I guess, for VS Code.
VS Code's open source, right? I mean, it's, everything is.
And for those developers out there who may be interested, I don't know, I just find this is an interesting sidebar developer tidbit. So we knew that when we developed this functionality, so you're getting a taste for some of the functionality, but we'll go through a little bit more. We weren't sure exactly how we wanted to deliver this from a UI perspective, but we knew we did want to deliver this functionality across editors. And at the time we started CodeStream, VS Code wasn't as dominant, like it wasn't as commonly used as it is today. In fact, when we first started CodeStream, Atom was sort of like the editor at the time. So we developed this cross IDE platform on which we built CodeStream. So this is actually all a React UI. And it's like this 3-tier architecture where it's React on the front end, it's LSP, and then there's a little process that we run on your computer. What we call it an agent, although it's just a sort of a little daemon that connects to our database and stuff like that.
Is that how you say that? Daemon? It's not daemon?
Daemon. I don't know. Daemon?
I mean, I like daemon better.
Yeah.
There's a little demon running.
Little evil person running on your computer. And so that means that we offer like the same. So this may look a lot like other VS Code extensions that you're used to with the sort of tree view and the sections and everything, but we've actually re-implemented that whole thing in React. So anyway, just
it's a web view there that we're looking at.
Yeah, it's a web view and all sort of React. So it's a little bit different. All right, cool. So let's, this is the last part of the observability section, which is related services. And so the other thing that I've always wondered as an application developer is that, especially when you first join a team, or maybe you're a junior developer and you're working on code, you try to learn as much as you can about the whole application that you're working on. So you may be working on a part of it, but it's good to know how the whole thing works. But then the next level up from that is like, how does this fit into the overall system? And especially with like microservice architectures where there are many, many different applications working together in concert, it's important to know like what other services my service is dependent on, or what other services are calling my service that are dependent on me. And so that's what we do with these related services. So these are the applications that are called by my service, and these are the services that my service calls. Because, for example, if ever there's a problem, you see these, I actually didn't go over this, but you see how these icons are green? That represents the fact that they're good, that they're not alerting. That means that they haven't exceeded any of the error thresholds that we've set. For example, if the response time went to be too high and the application got too slow, that might get over a threshold, in which case it would start alerting, and this green would go to red. And I'd know, hey, there's a problem.
Yeah.
But what we all know about systems is that sometimes the problem is local, like sometimes my application is the problem. But what if it's something that's downstream? Like, what if I'm calling a service that has high latency? That might be the ultimate problem. And that's what this related services helps me diagnose, is that if my application is red, maybe it's because something downstream is red. So it's a really great way to understand where your system fits into the big picture, but also to troubleshoot when there is a problem.
Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, the only other way to find out is when someone calls you and it's like, hey, sales reporting is not responding. Like,
Right.
oh, really? Okay.
What do I do now?
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Cool. So I've got two more things I'd like to cover. And
Sure.
obviously, like, if there's any questions in the chat, happy to jump on those as well.
Not yet, but we do have some math from Surly Dev, which I think we need to show because they did go and, you know,
Oh, they did do the
later.
calculation.
So
Yeah.
3 exabytes is, I don't even know what this number is, right? I feel like there should be an E in here somewhere. What is this, Surly Dev? What is this equals squiggly equals? Is that like a tilde? Is that just how the tilde shows up?
Is about equal to?
About equal, approximately. Or they even converted it to DVDs, which is a bit of an easier number to digest. 212 million DVDs. What does a DVD hold? No, like 600 megabytes?
No,
900 megabytes?
DVDs hold gigs. It's like 600 gig or something like that.
No, they don't. Do they?
Yeah, I think
DVDs
so.
hold that much?
Pretty sure.
Maybe I'm thinking of CD-ROMs. Man, it's been so long. 4.7 gigabytes on a DVD. Did you have to Google that, Shirley Dad, or you just know? CD 600 megabytes. Okay, see, I was there. I was just on the wrong technology. Blu-ray. Is Blu-ray still a thing? Do people still watch Blu-ray?
I just stream everything.
Chat. Do you still watch DVDs of Blu-rays? Like, do you have a drawer that slides out and you put a disc in, and then, or do you just stream everything? I'm curious. There's a Redbox just up the street at the CVS, and there's always people standing there, and I just want to tell them, hey, what are you doing? You don't have to do this.
This is on Netflix.
Right? It's on the internet. Yeah. But I don't know. I still watch VHS with my kids. I mean,
really?
Well, I remember there being, like, my parents sent me a bunch of VHS tapes of a series called Big Trucks, because I have 3 boys. And when they were small, they loved trucks and, you know, like heavy equipment, stuff like that. And that was the only way you could watch that particular show, was on a VCR. And so that's what you do. I burned them into Plex and then stream. Yeah, you could take all your... I do have a drawer full of DVDs where we were, like, collecting them for a time. You know, you'd go to Walmart, you'd be like, oh, you know, such and such movies in the $5 bin. I'm going to buy it.
Right.
It's kind of like when you were stocking up on CDs, and now we have Apple Music or Spotify or what have you.
Like taking a chance.
Yeah, exactly. All right. We derailed, and that's my fault.
All right.
Bob,
no worries.
Yeah. Bob the Builder on VHS, 10 out of 10. Totally agree. All right, let's get to these final demos. I'm sorry.
All right, so these golden metrics are great because it gets to see how my overall application is running. But what if I'm editing like a critical section of code and I want to know how performant it is, like a function or a method or something?
In development.
I want to see how it's doing in production, anywhere, any environment I want. We have something that we call code level metrics. And what this allows you to do, again, some of this works right out of the box, and then you can actually instrument at whatever level of granularity you want. So you can see here, we've got these code lenses that we automatically capture as different routes are hit in this application. will show you what the golden metrics are for those individual routes. And so if you have a method you want to instrument, you just add a couple of lines of code and we collect telemetry data for that method. And then we'll show you like how individual chunks of code are performing right now. So let's take a look at some of the detail, and I can load this up in my editor and see how it's even trended over time. So this is like unparalleled fidelity and granularity in terms of how to see how my code is running. And this is,
Yeah,
again,
looking at
it's
a particular
always on.
endpoint. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I mean, tooling has come a long way. What can we
Yeah.
say?
Cool. And then this, I guess 2 more things I wanted to show. One is something we called code marks, and this is a little bit of a different vein. So what code marks are is it's a way for people to talk about code. Now, when I say talk about code, everybody's kind of familiar with pull requests, right? Which is typically how we talk about code. So I've got a set of changes and I say, hey, Burke, can you let me know what you think about these changes? And that's great for code that's changing. But for code that isn't changing, like, for example, if I'm a new dev on the team and I just don't understand how this call to map is working, like I don't get it, well, wouldn't it be awesome if I could just ask? And that's what code marks do. Code marks is a sort of brand name like Twitter has tweets, or although I guess they're called X's now, where I can just select the code and add a comment. And here you can see the comment box pops up and Charlie has been tagged. Well, that's because we did the git blame and Charlie wrote that code. So I can say, how does this work? Or whatever question I want. And there's a lot of stuff I can also add to this. It can get quite complicated. So multiple code blocks, cross branches, whatever you want. And then I can even share it to Slack or Microsoft Teams in any channel I want. So once I post that question, you can see that that's now appears here as one of the outstanding questions for this repo. And we can take a look at what that looks like over in Slack. See here at Charlie, how does this work? And my teammate can reply directly in Slack, and I'll see that reply in my IDE. So it's an easy way to collaborate and just ask questions, especially if you're like a junior dev or somebody new to the team that doesn't quite get the code. And then kind of the icing on the cake is that you see this little icon here that actually stays as an annotation in the code for as long as this code is in the repo. So this even survives merges, and we do all the sort of complex calculation to determine like where this code ends up in future versions of the file.
Yeah, very nice. So again, bringing the context into the editor, so you're not copying and pasting code into Slack.
And then Slack, and then it's lost forever, right? Because once somebody answers that question, that's pretty cool that it stays.
Yeah, messaging is so ephemeral. We use Teams here a lot at Microsoft, and this is my primary gripe. It's not a Teams issue. It's just the nature of chat is that when you handle business there, it's kind of lost. And then I go back and I know somebody pasted a link to this document, and I'm like 15 minutes there looking for it, and it's just so aggravating. Like they just emailed it to me. I can literally find it in 5 seconds. So on your point about the git blame, which I think is interesting. This morning, chat, I was listening to the news, and so the Voyager spacecraft that I think they launched it in the 70s, something like that, and it's got the record of like different human languages and music and all the kind of stuff that we would want someone to find the Fermi paradox as a whole. Exactly. And so here's Pez, this is what happened. So they have a problem, and the problem is that they deployed some code to the Voyager to adjust the angle of the antenna
by like 2 degrees or something, right?
And they're 2 degrees off. And because they're at Neptune, which is like way out there, 2 degrees is like
they missed Earth by a lot.
Yeah, they missed Earth by a lot. So they can't communicate. They're having a lot of trouble communicating with it. And I was just thinking, like, running the git blame on that. Who is responsible for this?
Right.
That's gotta hurt.
I know I speak for many of us when I say that when I first learned how to use Git, it was a challenge to understand how all the different commands worked and everything. And blame was one of those things. I'm like, why did they call it that? That's such a weird name to tell me who wrote this line of code. And then, the more seen or the more experience I get as an application developer, the more I realize that's exactly why.
Yeah, because it's Linus, and that's exactly what he would call it. All right. When will CodeStream support DevOps, Azure DevOps?
It does. So we do support Azure DevOps.
So the answer is right now. For PRs, that is.
Not for PRs. So we do have PR support. Somebody's sort of looking ahead. So we do have pull request support for GitLab, GitHub, and Bitbucket. It's actually rather rich. I wasn't going to go into this in this demo, but we have really cool PR support because it's right in your ID and it's fed by production telemetry. So the thing you saw here about seeing how the code is performing, well, the idea is doing what we call a data-driven code review. So when you're looking at a diff, for example, you can see if this change is in a critical section of the code to see, like, is this an area of the code that gets called frequently in production? Is this potentially going to be a bottleneck? And so that's why we have the PR support built right in. But that's not one of our, that's something I would invite you to try. There are other PR solutions out there, of course, but we'd love you to try that out as well.
All right. Well, we're getting up on time here, and
so last thing,
one more thing. Okay.
So this part is so cool, and I'm going to switch to insiders here because it's sort of a really forward-looking. This doesn't quite exist yet. It's in limited preview, but I hope you'll all get as excited about this as I am. So I mentioned I was going to come back to errors. So what are errors? We, by default, a lot of the stuff comes right out of the box. We capture any uncaught exceptions and then show them to you. So within this repo, this application that's running, we capture the most recent errors, and then we'll also allow assignment. So this error is assigned to me. So I can open it in my IDE, and attached to this error is a stack trace. So the first thing we do, which I think is just really cool, is we show you the stack trace and the individual frames of the trace, and we allow you to just have a clickable interface to your stack trace.
Oh, to go right to the code.
Right to the code. And not only right to the code, but like we will load the version of the code that's running in production, right? Because the line numbers here, I'm sure we've all encountered this. When you get a stack trace from some running system, that line number might not match what's in the latest, like the latest that you've got pulled down on from your repo, from whatever head is for you.
Oh yeah.
But we know what version is running in production. So when we load this up for you, we load the right version of the file and take you directly to the code.
So I noticed that you've grayed out the library parts of the stack trace which are always super unhelpful to me when it's like you had a problem in some node module and then it lists like 10 internally minified JavaScript files that I can't do anything with.
Can't get to, right?
Yeah.
And so let me go sort of levels of coolness. So navigating the stack trace, that's pretty cool. Being able to then see how that code is performing. You saw some code lenses in there as we're looking through here, so I can see what this is doing in production. So that's the production telemetry. That's also cool. We saw how code marks can help me collaborate. So for example, if I think the problem might be here, I can comment on this and collaborate with my teammates to help debug this. But the really, really cool thing is this thing we call Grok. So Grok is the trade name or the brand name for our generative AI assistant. So Grok is across all of New Relic. Grok is sort of the brand for all of our AI stuff. So what we've done here is we'll take the error itself, so cannot read properties of null, of undefined. We've taken the stack trace, so all the frames of the stack trace. We've taken the context of little code snippets around those function calls and the production telemetry of how this has been trending over time, what the deployments have been to this service. And we feed all of this information into an LLM. And you can analyze this with Grok. And so what will happen is the LLM will give you a description of what's happening, and even if it can, suggest a fix. So this is where it found the error, what it suggests as a fix, and you can just apply that fix. And once you apply the fix, it tells you the code fix is applied, and it suggests a commit message to you. And you can go ahead and commit that change with that commit message.
Wow. That is very cool.
I mean, we've all seen awesome use cases with like things like Copilot, where you can sort of direct the AI to do what you want. But this is a new set of use cases around fixing problems, because there's so much information around a problem, the stack trace, the code snippets, the production telemetry. And when we find that when you feed all of that into the LLM, you can get some pretty awesome results back and automatically fix some of your problems. So we're super excited about this.
That is awesome. All right, y'all, check out New Relic New Relic CodeStream in VS Code. Do we have a link for folks? Peggy, make it easy for them. And we'll drop in the chat as well. There we go. All right. And while chat does that, we will move into our lightning round and we'll get out of here. All right, let's do it. All right. I was like, I know we have a bumper for lightning round. Where's it at? All right, lightning round. Here we go. First subject, politics. No, I'm just joking. I'm joking. Just kidding.
You got me.
I saw the panic in your face for a second. I'm so sorry. That's the meanest thing I've ever done to anybody. Okay. Well, we've already covered this one, but tabs or spaces?
Tabs.
Tabs. JSON or JSON?
JSON.
GIF or GIF?
I guess GIF, reluctantly.
Reluctantly?
Yeah. Because I've said GIF all my life, and then somebody convinced me it should be GIF, so I guess I'll do it GIF now.
I just can't make that switch myself. But yeah. Semicolons or significant white space?
Semicolons.
Yeah, I agree. I was actually writing a project with JavaScript, and Prettier is removing all the semicolons. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this at all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it, Pez. Thank you so much for being with us today on the live stream. We enjoyed it. Very cool stuff happening in New Relic CodeStream. And yeah, that's awesome. Appreciate
Thanks
you
so
being
much,
here.
Burke.
All right.
Thank
All right,
you.
chat. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye-bye.